Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Thanks for joining Health Seminar today. Today, I want to talk about our digestive system. All right. So first, generally, our body works really well with all these physiology just to work together, especially the system we have, like a skeletal system, is like a muscles, bone, also breathing system, heart system, lymph system, and nerve system, and hormone. And then what is a human digestive system? We want to talk about the mainly today digestive system. So if you see here, your far left, you see this picture, right? So basically, our digestive system is a long, continuous tube about 9 meters in length. So imagine it's really long, right? And the illustration on the right is demonstrates the 4 layers of our digestive wall. So structure of GI tract wall is actually 4 layers, and first, the most innermost layer, it is called the mucosa layer. So it's a 1 layer of connective tissue, and it's like an immense surface area. The main function will be absorptions, as well as this microvilli you see is really very small, and the thin microvilli just covers whole area of digestive system, and the main function is absorption. And another layer, second layer, is submucosal layer. It supports vessels and nerves and lymph system. So submucosal layer just beneath the mucus, and just to just this mucus function really well. Submucus just provides all the nutrients and nerves and lymph system. And next layer is muscle layer. So even this structure supporting system has to have a little bit more stronger structure supporting that structure. So that layer is a muscle layer, third layer, if you see in the picture. It is composed of a smooth muscle layer. Main functions is it moves the food to the area from the mouth to all the way to the rectum. How? Because it has an electric and very contractile component, so it can just move the food. It's just proper food. And the next layer, the far outer side is it is called the serosal layer. It just protects the whole GI system in the far outside. So what would be the primary function of digestive system? Mainly, key function is digestion, and next function is absorption and metabolism and defecations. So digestion starts from your mouth and all the way to the rectum. So digestion is mainly, especially in the mouth, once you take the food, what do? You chew, right? You chew with your saliva. So starting from mastication means you chew food. And once you chew the food, that goes down, pathway of your esophagus, and goes down. So with the movement, so with the sum of the movement with gravity, the food go down. And then once the food go down, what's going to happen? What do you have to have? The process is you have to really make the big chunk to the smaller pieces, right? So the smaller pieces can be observed later. So So that's why segmentation means you make the big chunk to smaller pieces, and absorption means all those smaller pieces has to be absorbed through the small intestine, and then absorb the nutrients. The main function and main purpose of the absorbed all the nutrient to make energy, right? We have to move and we have to breathe. All these require energy through the nutrients. And then last part is defecation. Defecation means you have to make a stool because all those leftover, all the energy you used, and then all these leftover foods and the leftover will be have to turn to stool, and then has to come out through the rectum, and that's defecation. That's what we have bowel movement. So let's start from the first organ of our body. It's mouth. We start from mouth. So when you take the food, as I already told you, we start chew. When you start chew, without the saliva, you cannot really chew well, right? So this saliva is really, really important. So it's coming out from 3 glands. So here under the tongue, and it secrete a lot per day, 1,000 cc per day. That's a lot, right? And it's so basically it assists the swallowing by softening foods. Also, the other 2 most important thing is it has enzymes, a digestive enzyme. It is called alpha amylase. And so what it does, it changes starch to glucose nutrients. So what I wanted to point is, so your absorption, not absorption, your digestion already starting from your mouth. Most of us, we do not think about that. Mouth is just only just chewing, and then we store food, and then just we swallow. But that's not only function, it has this digestive function. So if you chew a lot with your saliva, and you're already starting digestion in your mouth. And another next function is saliva has immunoglobulin A. So that means it protects our body from the bacteria and virus. And next organ is esophagus. So esophagus is the kind of pathway of food from your mouth to all the way to stomach. So what it does, it's just, even though it just only delivers the food, it has a pretty big functions, especially if you see here, the food go down, and if you see all the way down, you see this structure. You see there's a thinning structure here, in the junction of the esophagus and stomach. It is called the low esophageal sphincter. So what it does, whenever the food go down to stomach all the way, then it will close it up. It has to close it up. If it just continues opening up, all the stomach content will go up to the esophagus. That's not good. So I want to talk about this a little bit later with the stomach part, but esophagus is really important organ too. And especially you remember this sphincter. And next organ is pretty hollow organ of the stomach, the most important digestive organ. As you see here, this is the far your right side of the picture illustrates the picture of when you see the stomach inside. It just looks like this. It's a lot of it's just folded with this lining. What happens is if you swallow food a lot, and it just dilate, and then when you are in the empty stomach, it would just shrink like this way. So it's just kind of very stretchy, like this way. And the stomach has primary functions with food storage and digestions, especially with the help of gastric juice. Everybody heard about gastric juice, right? It's very important. Why? Because it's a very primary role of digestion of protein. Protein only digests with a pH 1 to 1.5 strong acidic environment. So what happened is, so everybody think that, okay, gastric juice is very strong acid, then what's going to happen? It will just eat up our mucus of our stomach. No, actually it's not. Our body is amazing. Even it's very strong acidic component, but the lining of the stomach, the mucus is very thick. So it doesn't usually penetrate all the way to the stomach organ. So keeping the gastric mucus layer always healthy is very important at this point. And the stomach also has another digestive enzymes and mucus, intrinsic factor, and water and electrolytes all just combined together helps with the chemical digestion. And next organ is the small intestine. Small intestine is most longest digestive system in our body, about 7 meters in length. So it's from this organ, just the majority of digestion happens. So basically, protein, protein actually digested in the stomach, but the other nutrients of carbohydrates and the lipid hasn't really digested well. So in this small intestine, all those other nutrients of carbohydrates and a little bit more protein breakdown, as well as a lipid breakdown, will mainly happen in small intestine. And with the help of a pancreatic enzyme and liver enzymes, it will complete all those breakdown process. And what's going to happen next is absorption. All these small breakdown food will be absorbed in the small intestine to utilize as an energy. And next, GI organ is a large intestine, very, very important organ. A lot of people think that large intestine only makes, only makes a stool. What is that important? Actually, it is. It's only about 1.5 meter in length. However, it contains a lot of good and bad bacteria combinations. It is called the microbiome ecology. So nowadays, it's a microbiome is really, really big deal. So maybe later I can talk about that more. However, anyways, that's really, really important to protect our body in terms of our body immunity and the resistant infections. So if your large intestine function is not really good, you can go through a lot of disease. I can talk about that a little bit later. So remember, large intestine is very important. Okay, next, what's going to happen if all your GI system have a problem? It can cause even systemic problem. Let's talk about that. So let's go by one from esophagus, having problem of a movement problem. You can have a, okay. You can have some vessel problem. You can have some infection problem. Also, you can have reflux issues. So as I briefly mentioned, what was the most important structure in esophagus? That was the sphincter, right? The sphincter in the bottom of esophagus and the junction of this area. So this sphincter, if it doesn't function really well, and what's going to happen is this, if you see this arrow, right? It's a normal stomach. Food doesn't go up to the esophagus. But if you see the picture on the right side, you see this arrow, the yellow arrow. So food content go up to the esophagus. It shouldn't happen. What's going to happen is this is strong gastric content, pH 1 to 1.5. It's very strong acid, go up to the esophagus, and esophagus doesn't have that strong mucus line up. And if the if you meet the pH 1.5 stomach content, you can have burn. And if you have burn, it's really, really, really severe pain you're going to experience. I never had that pain, but I saw a lot of patients coming to the ER with this severe, like a chest pain. It's like very confused with the myocardial infarctions, that bad pain. So if you see the picture bottom on your side, this is normal esophagus, very smooth, and the sphincter usually like a close up like this way. But however, if you see the picture far right bottom on your side, you see this little bit reddening around the esophagus, and then you see the it's opening, even though you don't. Even though you completed your job, passing down your food, you have to close it up, but it just to still keep it open. Then you're going to have the food reflux to your esophagus. So it's very important. What's going to happen? The most important factor of this causing disease is overeating. If you overeat, this can happen. So only your stomach can hold, and then, very ideally hold the 70% or 80% of the total stomach capacity. Is so about the 70 to 80% is better. However, if you eat food about 90%, 100%, or sometimes 120, 150%, then you can have this disease. And next is a disease happens in the esophagus, is a candidal infections, is a fungal infection. If your immunity is really decreased, then this can happen. And another disease happening in the esophagus is esophageal cancer. If you are burning from the birth, gastroesophageal reflux disease, if you have that disease long period of time, and then that burning tissue can turn into cancer. Then let's talk about the stomach disease. And most common and fatal disease in the world is gastritis. So gastritis is the most common cause of a stomach burn. I told you stomach has a strong acid. It has to be protected by the very thick mucus layer. However, whatever reason, your layer will be affected by stress or affected by your bad habits of eating, or affected by if you ingested a very bad food and then causing significant problem in your stomach, then what's going to happen, it is called acute gastritis. You can have acute symptoms in your acute inflammation as well as acute symptom. And chronic gastritis is a chronic inflammation in your stomach. And then I will talk a little bit later, more detail in here. So there's types of gastritis. First is stress gastritis. It's caused by mainly stress. If you get stressed out, if you see here in the middle of the picture, you can see a little bit of a bleeding is like a dot-like bleeding showing here. Because of your stress, your stomach started a little bit of bleeding in the mucus. And then next, gastritis, superficial gastritis, and erosional gastritis, atrophic gastritis, hypertrophic gastritis. This is all different types of gastritis. You don't need to know about all these. However, all this happens because of this mucus lining was involved as well as affected. So if your mucus layer getting thinner and then having problem, all these can happen: bleeding, inflammation, and ulcer. And next disease is gastroptosis. Means if you eat too much of food, 120% or 150% of the capacity of your stomach, then what's going to happen is your stomach size will be really, really big, and it just our body has always, homeostasis. It can go down, shrink down. However, if you repeat that overeating, and stomach cannot really shrink down, and then your stomach will be really will remain in pretty big size, and that abnormally downward just the displacement happens, and then your stomach is supposed to be located in this this side, but it will go down all the way to the low abdomen. So you're gonna feel always very discomfort. And one of the stomach disease is the stomach ulcer. So if your mucosal lining is very thinning to the point where you can have just too much of a hole, and then it cannot protect your stomach from the strong acid. So strong acid eat up all those mucosal layer, submucosal layer, to the point where muscle layer, and the pain is really, really too much. And if you see that your far left, the picture is endoscopy picture showing that how our body try to protect, from the thinning of a mucus. However, it cannot really cover it up anymore. And if your ulcer and other gastritis, it just lasts really, really long and cannot recover, our body cannot recover anymore, then next what's going to happen is stomach cancers. So usually male populations has more stomach cancers, almost double, especially in Korea, because of their lifestyle. They're drinking alcohol and smoking and spicy foods, hot foods, and all those meat. You just burn your meat in the stove and you eat it. It's all those factors just affect and as well cause stomach cancer. So most of the reasons having stomach cancer is wrong eating habits. Especially, I want to talk about Helicobacter pylori. So this is the bacteria living in the stomach normally, abnormally, because this can be infected by the other people's saliva, or if you just share your spoon or share the food together, then this bacteria can be infected each other quickly. The problem is it doesn't usually cause any significant problem at first. However, if you have still very bad lifestyle and eating very badly, then this bacteria spread really quickly. And then you can have later develop gastritis, a gastric ulcer, and gastric stomach cancer too. Then I was wondering how this bacteria can survive the strong acid. But you know what? This bacteria is very smart. It can embed it in the mucosal thick layer, and that they just inhabited that area, that it doesn't come out all the way to the acidic area. So isn't that really smart to survive? But anyway, this bacteria is easily can be detected through the lab test in the hospital. So if you really think about that, oh yeah, I changed my diet, I did everything in terms of treating gastritis, gastric ulcer, and then you still have this significant symptom of a burning sensation, indigestion, you just think about go to your doctor, check this H. pylori bacteria. It's an easy test, just a breathing test, and then get rid of this bacteria, take care of your problem. And interestingly, broccoli suppress growth of Helicobacter pylori. Interesting. And then what if your large intestine having problem? So if your large intestine having problem, I just skipped all other disease. I only talk about only colon cancer. So you can develop colon cancer, but any cancer cannot develop in 1 to 2 years. Always takes time, more than 10 years. So whenever you started your bad habits, eating bad foods, there's a less fiber food, then you get stressed out a lot, and then you just start with a very small lesion in the large intestine, and it's just only invade the mucosal area. And then as time goes by, it just invade more submucosal layer, and then muscle layer and serosal layer, and later all the way to the lymph node, all the way to the blood vessels, and go to all other organs. So this is the stages of the colon cancer. So how do you get this colon cancer? First, you're gonna get the little polyp, like a little polyp just grows, and then turn into from benign to malignant. So this usually caused by, definitely the genetic factor is important, but that's only few percentage. Majority of type, 80 to 90% of patient populations of colon cancer can be developed by all this animal fat, saturated fat, and the red meat, or too much consumption of processed meat products, sausage, ham, and bacon. So those are main factors. And the other factors, and obesity itself can cause inflammations, and that causes cancer. And drinking alcohol and over 50 years old, then having high risk of cancer. And other inflammatory disease of Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis can cause cancer. So as I already told you, it doesn't start right away with cancer. It starts with a very small lesion of a polyp and grow to the point where it just turn into cancer. So you don't want to develop really this serious disease. You want to prevent or reverse your condition before cancer develops. So this interesting article, I found that this is about the association between dietary fat intake and colorectal cancer in Korean adults. And in this study shows that the correlations between fat intake, how much of if you as you take more fat in your diet, you're going to develop more colorectal cancer. So this is for sure. This journal proves that if you take more animal fat and saturated fat, you're going to get cancer in your colon. Now, so we reviewed all those digestive system one by one, and then we talked about all those disease. Then what's going to be the treatment? We talked about all the disease and what is the next step, how are you going to treat? I want to talk about the treatment only with the based on the healthy natural way. So how to eat healthy. So Robert Amitis mentioned that the secret of looking young is how you eat. So how you eat is very important. How you eat is who you are. What you eat is who you are, because it just affects whole body. So let's talk about that. So nowadays we are exposed with a lot of foods and a lot of medicine, a lot of pills, especially all these processed food, white sugar, white flour, and then food additives and food ingredients, as well as most important, I want to mention about the antibiotics, because large intestine is very important. If you use antibiotics long period of time or frequently, what's going to happen is it will wipe it out, all those good bacteria in your intestine. So it is very important, if you can, try not to develop any inflammatory disease, but even though you develop it, you try not to use antibiotics. Even though you use the antibiotics, try to resume with either probiotics and resume with the healthy food to regrowth of the good bacteria. So what's the best way to improve your digestions? I suggest just 3 things. Only remember only three things. Eat smaller amount of food, eat slower, and eat vegetables. So I want to emphasize this a little bit more as I go by one more pictures and everything. So eat smaller. All right. Before I talk about that, you see, in Korea, when you go to the restaurant, and then when you order food, sometimes this much of food come out. And then people think when you eat this much of food and variety of food, you think that's, oh, I ate really well. This is the meal I wanted to eat. I wanted to eat every single day. This is like a king's, king's meal. But anyway, this looks good, but well-prepared meal. However, what's going to be the problem? The problem is if you eat this variety of food and eat a lot of food, this give our stomach and digestive organ burden. A lot of people get sick due to appetite abuse. Do not eat too much different foods at one time. It is a lot better to eat only 2 to 3 different foods instead of burdening your stomach. So if you eat too much of food, like your stomach capacity, you should eat like a 70 to 80%, but you eat like a 100%, 120%. That's not good because your stomach cannot really digest or just move because it's like you're just packed with food and you cannot really move, you cannot really digest. Have you ever experienced anybody when you go to the like wedding, you eat a lot of food, right? And then on that day you like develop stomach pain and you just like a digestion problem, you have diarrhea, right? Everybody experienced that, right? So that's what happens if you eat too much of food. And if you ate too much of a capacity, way over exceeding your stomach capacity, then all these too much burdening happens. Especially don't mix your food. Especially when you go eat too much of food, a variety of foods, what's going to happen is it will just what is it called? It will just it's a bad effect to our stomach and the intestine. It will make it eventually to alcohol, even though we drink alcohol every single day. But if you mix up with the food, like a protein with grain and fruits with vegetables, especially if you have weak digestive the weak digestive system organ if you have weak system, it is better not to mix with food, especially fruit and vegetables. But protein, grain, we eat rice with the all other protein. I think it's just a little amount and then just a less variety of a food. If you eat, that's fine. However, if you too much of meat with a lot of rice together, that will definitely cause some digestion problem because the protein enzymes, protein breakdown enzymes and carbohydrate breakdown enzymes, they are different. They are working the different pH environment. So that's why it is better not to eat too much together. And on top of that, fruit and vegetable, it is not good mixed together because the fruits has much faster digestion time than vegetables. So if you mix together, it will turn to alcohol in your stomach. So and I want to talk about the bad habits you try to avoid. First is overeating. I mentioned that because of stomach capacity. Don't eat too much. Next, don't eat fast. If you eat fast, you don't utilize your mouth. digestion function. It's really important. If you just really help yourself to digest the food in your mouth at least a little bit, and you will just give less burden in your stomach and small intestine. And third, try not to eat any high calorie foods in between meals, and try not to eat any food in between meals. So if you really have to eat some dessert, try not to eat high calorie foods. And next, fourth, don't eat late at night. What's going to happen is, as soon as you ate like 9 o'clock, and then you have to lie down like 10 o'clock, and then you still have a full stomach. And then when you lie down, your stomach content go up to your esophagus. That's why try not to eat too late. Try to eat before 6 o'clock. So ideal meal plan is having 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner. A lot of people, they skip breakfast, but I recommend to eat breakfast if you can, because once you eat breakfast, it will wake up your body metabolism early in the morning. Then, if you want to really lose weight, you don't want to skip the breakfast, because it will wake up and it will increase your resting metabolism, and you can lose weight. So breakfast, try to eat it and with the fresh fruits and a little bit of a oatmeal, and just try to eat it. And the lunch, you just include the grains and vegetables, proteins. And dinner, try to eat small amount of food. And stomach and energy related with. So if you are, once you did too much of exercise and you are really worried and anxious, and then after you studied really hard and then you try to eat, then a lot of people just experience that you're just having digestion problems. So our body and our mind, it's connected. So when you eat it, try to get rid of all, you just control your environment. Try to get rid of all those distractions and only focus on what you're eating, and focus on your eating itself. So chew a lot, eating slowly, and enjoy your food. So how to make your small intestine healthy? At least 5 hours in between meals. But if you really have to eat dessert, try to eat only vegetables and fruits. And make sure all your meals has enough grains, fruits, and vegetables, all as well as nuts. Try to include all those healthy food choices. Also, eat slowly, chew a lot in your mouth. Then your small intestine will be happy, not too much a burden. And then try to avoid eating processed food, pizza, fried foods, meats, and all the chemical seasoning and food additives. All those will affect your small intestine digestions, as well as eat up your mucus lining up. And don't get stressed while you are eating. And how are you gonna maintain your large intestine healthy? So if you eat meat frequently, toxin will be produced in the large intestine. So try not to eat meat, and try to consume more fibers from the grains or from the vegetables. I want to talk about the fibers a little bit later, because without a lot of fibers, stool will stay in your large intestine very long period of time. And then what's going to happen is a lot of ammonia and toxin will be produced that will cause bad effect. What's going to happen is those ammonia and those toxin will be observed through the bloodstream and go to your brain. It will be negatively affect your brain, and you're just very tired, easily forget, and yeah, not good. And then try to exercise and try to eat frequently, raw vegetables if you can. So raw vegetables has a lot of live enzymes. So if you want to utilize, take advantage of those live enzymes, you gotta eat raw vegetables and try to drink warm water frequently during the day. Okay, I want to talk about the fibers. Why do we need fibers? You know, fibers is not really nutrient. Fibers is not really observing. It's not a nutrient you can observe. It doesn't digest. Why do we need to eat fibers, right? That's in your mind right now, right? Right. It doesn't have a nutrient. It doesn't break down in your digestive system. However, it has really, really primary function. It has really essential function in your GI system. What it does is, once you eat a lot of fibers, like from the vegetables and from the grain, okay, you consumed it, and then it just break down in your mouth, and the breakdown through all the small intestine, large intestine, and it goes all the way down to your large intestine. And once it reaches in the large intestine, what's going to happen is the fibers, it absorbs a lot of water, and it will increase its size almost 100 times. And then it just make a bigger size in the large intestine. And then once it just acts like a sweeping functions. It's like a broom. You just sweep it out with the broom, like nicely your large intestine, like really clean, like with this fully like a bigger size of this the fibers, just clean it out really, really well, your large intestine, all the way from the start of a large intestine all the way to the rectum. So without these fibers, you're going to have constipation issues, and you can have very like a pencil size of a stool. That's not good, because if you have like a big size, big enough like a banana size of a stool, that's the indicator you are healthy, your gut is healthy. So fibers nowadays, it's essential nutrients, even though we don't think that's important. However, since you heard this lecture, you gotta really from now on change your diet with the consumption of more vegetables and grains. Okay, I wanna emphasize one more time. It's almost time for wrap it up, but the best ways to improve your digestion is eat smaller, eat slower, and eat vegetables. 3 things. Please remember, you can just forget everything today I talked about you. However, please remember only 3 things. Eat smaller amount of food, eat slower, eat vegetables. I'm going to wrap it up after this slide. So you're going to lose one thing if you lose money. You're going to lose 2 things if you lose friends. You're going to lose everything if you lose health. So thank you everybody listening my the lecture today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
통역 없이 하니까 훨씬 일찍 끝났어요. 저기 질문할 때 좀 답 좀 같이 줘 보실래요? 바로 나가지 않아도 되면은.
예, 알겠습니다. 제가 스크린 쉐어를 끄겠습니다.
아주 좋다고 그러네. 오늘 강의 아주 좋았다고? 아주. Okay. If you have